Yeah, it's an interesting one to answer because we never wanted to put any limits on our players as to what we could do. So our overall goal was to improve. In my heart of hearts, I was hopeful that we might be able to push for finals, and I thought a realistic number, probably on the back of the previous 2 years, was 8 to 10 wins. And obviously we achieved a lot more than that, but that's originally where our thinking was. Obviously that changed as the year went on. We sort of reached the halfway mark of the season, I think 7-5, so we thought, well, by that point in time we're able to do a little bit better than that. But the players themselves, they didn't have any limits on themselves. That's more me in the back of my mind.
Oh, just silly.
A big night for Brisbane. A huge result over the reigning premier in round one. Beware of the Lions in 2019.
Pretty excited by our start when we were able to beat West Coast in round one and then win 3 in a row against some teams we hadn't beaten for a while. But probably the point at which I thought, okay, we're a pretty serious side, is when we were able to go back-to-back on the road against, I think, GWS and then Port Adelaide. They're two pretty daunting road trips, and particularly the second one where we went over to Adelaide without Eric Hipwood, without Hodge and without Hugh McCluggage, and were able to win in the manner that we did. I thought that was the point at which I thought, we can have a bit of an impact this year.
Easy way at all, and the pressure is relentless, and so is the scoreboard. 6-0 now. When's this going to stop?
Last year's season was better than a 5-win season. We were so close in so many games, and it could easily have been an 8 to 10 win season last year. So we had made ground up. So I was confident that if we continued just to improve as a group, that we'd be able to win a few more games. I think the attitude of the players, a lot of them, there was a big group of them training probably a month before they had to come back to official club training, and they turned up in such good condition that we were ahead of where we thought we'd be. So we could get into match practice and competitive work a lot sooner, so that definitely helped. The acquisition of Lachie Neale, Lincoln McCarthy, Marcus Adams, Jared Lyons, no doubt helped. Experienced players, good AFL players, leaders. That definitely contributed to it. And then it was just the continued development of our young players. McCluggage, Berry, Witherden, Rayner, those sorts of guys. All came back better players. And sort of all those things was a good combination for a better year. I think the best thing we did all year was just we consistently just tried to improve and never really took our focus off that. And I think the group themselves, they were well led by guys like Zorks and Hodge and Harris and Lachie, and those guys sort of just kept the place pretty even. We sort of, given our past, we didn't really have any reason to get too confident with ourselves. We knew that we needed to keep our heads down. And the beauty was we didn't have a lot of injuries. We had good continuity in the team. And I think once we started to win a few games, the boys knew the recipe and just went out and continued to apply it. And I thought they did a really good job at probably not taking too much notice of all the external hype that was going around about the club, and just kept working pretty hard each weekend to get a win, and that was the case all the way to the end.
The final margin will be 22 points at the Gabba, and it will be greeted with cheers on a tough night in Brisbane. Another win collected by Chris Fagan and his team, and they end an 11-run streak by the Sydney Swans over the Lions.
Oh, that was huge. I mean, some of them I think Sydney was 10 years. That's a long time to having not beaten a team in this competition. So we took a lot of confidence and a lot of joy out of overcoming those hurdles. We always talked about the idea that if you want to be the best, you've got to beat the best. So there's no getting around it. And so I think the boys just looked at each of those moments during the season as a real challenge, and got some good results because of it.
In game number 200, Daniel Rich from 55, he launches.
I reckon Daniel Rich has been, for my 3 years at the club, I reckon Daniel's been a pretty consistent performer across halfback. He probably had his best ever year this year, which is great. But Probably the guy that bobbed up. You never quite know how the guys that you draft are going to go, but Noah Answorth was a real bonus. You know, you sort of think that a lot of those young boys might take a year or two in the NEFL side to develop, but he came into the team I think in round 6 and didn't go out of the team, and is a rising star nomination. But the thing for me was the maturity with which he played for a guy of his age. Like, he looked strong out there and didn't look intimidated, and you know, obviously would have gotten a lot out of playing 19 games and a couple of finals.
Rich fumbles it back towards Witherden. Another entry. Oh, the big ride! McCarthy in game number 50 against his former team. What a mark! With the winner after the siren in game 200. Now game number 50, and it's all been worth the ride for Lincoln McCarthy.
Well, there's been some different moments. I guess the Geelong game was huge for our club out here. You know, I know it was only short-lived, but we're on top of the ladder, round 22. It's a long time between drinks for our club, and it was a tough finals-like game. So very proud of them there. The 2 wins on the road that I mentioned to you that we had consecutively, and I suppose the overarching thing was with the playing group, particularly the leadership group, was the way they owned the team. They owned their performance. They were very proactive in trying to make the team better. You know, we have a Monday meeting with our leaders, and so many times they had a meeting before that meeting so that they could come in and tell me what they thought we needed to do, which was a huge step in the leadership of this footy club. So, and that's where we've been always wanting to get them to. And this year, you can see that was really happening. So, you know, that sort of stuff, those sort of meetings happen on a regular basis. So that was probably the overarching impressive thing for the season. The really brutal game was the Giants game at their ground. It was a contested tackle pack game for the entire night, and you know, we got a lead early in the game of 3 or 4 goals, and we just held on to that lead all night. They threw everything at us. It probably wasn't too dissimilar to the final out here. It was a bit of a very similar game in a way. We didn't get the result, even though statistically we were actually better in the final than we were against them at their own ground. But that was a tough game, that one. Sitting on the sidelines, the way the bodies were hitting, and it didn't stop for 2 hours. It was amazing. I thought the challenging moment was when we won the 3 games at the start of the year. Then we went down to Melbourne, and Eston gave us a bit of a touch-up, particularly in the first half, and then the Collingwood game up here where we went down by 10 goals. It was a bit of a... fortunately, we had 10 days after the Collingwood game to reflect on the first 5 weeks of the season, and it really taught us a few lessons about ourselves, those 2 losses. I always say those losses, as long as you don't have too many of them, are your best teachers, and that was certainly the case in that 2-week period. We sort of did a bit of an audit of ourselves and what we looked like when we played well and what we looked like when we didn't play so well, and that sort of gave us a really clear way forward. So we changed a couple of things with the way that we're playing after that game, and stood us in pretty good stead for the rest of the year, because I think we lost 4 more games, one of those by a point after the siren, a couple by 2 goals, and the Richmond game in round 23 in the home and away. So the way we played after that stood up pretty well. The Carlton loss was an interesting one, but the way I reflect on that and what I thought at the time was we were just a bit tired from pretty long pre-season, and you know, 12 games of footy in a row. Our GPS in the second half of that game just went through the floor. It was the lowest it had been. I just thought, oh, maybe we're just tired as a group and we need the couple of weeks to freshen up, which seemed to be the case because we went on a nine-game winning streak after that bye. Yeah, well, the whole idea with Hodge was that not only would he come here and help us on the field, but when he did stop playing, that he would leave a legacy of leadership. And I think we've seen evidence of that over the 2 years. I mean, he missed 5 games over the last 2 years, and 4 of those we won. So what I noticed when he didn't play was the guys that play in and around him stepped up, and I think it's on the back of the example that he's actually set in the time that he's been here. Honestly, you couldn't help but learn from him. You know, everyone has a bit of a joke about how he's pointing and instructing out on the oval all the time, but it's amazingly helpful to his teammates, and I know that Harrison Andrews and Darcy Gardner and Daniel Rich are looking to pick that up next year. And he also played really well. I mean, you know, for his age and for how many games he's played and for how tough he's played in all of those games, it was amazing that he was able to get through the 2 years in the manner that he did. And, you know, as usual, he stepped up in the finals too. So he's going to stay around the club in a part-time coaching role. So he's going to be able to continue to educate our players, whether it be on little parts of their game or on leadership. So he's still around, which is great because he doesn't necessarily have to be here to have an influence. But I'm really confident that what he's taught him will stand him in good stead, and that a number of other guys are looking forward to the opportunity to step up.
Andrews has got to be so clean and find someone with his kick, Kenny. Broken up in the air. Berry's got it. There's your siren, the Giants are through to a prelim.
The biggest learnings were, it's interesting because statistically, if the stats for both of those games, if you said to me that's what they were going to look like, I would have gone, I'm pretty happy with that. That'll win us most games. As it turned out, it didn't win us either of those games. So then you look for the answers as well. Why did that happen? And the visions sort of showed us. I mean, I've just spoken about the first final. It was really accuracy when we were on top. We should have put a bit more pressure on Richmond on the scoreboard, but didn't. And then the game the next week against GWS, we just had some brain fade moments defensively. We had some moments in the last quarter when I think our guys were trying too hard to win the game and didn't see easy options inside 50. But they're all learnings, you know. Finals, it goes up a notch. The stakes are higher. It means more to you, and our guys will benefit so much from having had that experience. They'll be able to reflect back on that and go, now you've got to be able to keep a cool head. And finals are all about moments. When the best are playing the best, there's not much between them, and you just got to win more of those important moments than the opposition. And we didn't quite, but the exciting thing about what we got out of finals is that we didn't walk away thinking we can't compete at this level. We walked away thinking we can. We just got to get a couple more things right and we'll be okay. But the thing is now we've got to go back to scratch. We're all back to zero and we've got to start again, and you've got to try and win enough games to give yourself another opportunity. So we can't get caught up too much in thinking about finals. We've just got to give ourselves another chance and put into practice the things we learned in the finals into the home and away, so that we're better prepared next year if we can get there. Well, it was brilliant, wasn't it? We had 4 crowds this year, 30,000 plus. So the Collingwood game in round 5, which is probably as many Collingwood people here as there were Brisbane people, but the next 3 times it was Brisbane people and some of the opposition. So no, I'd never experienced the Gabba full and in full voice, and I know I appreciated the influence that our crowd had on team performance, on our players. Loved it. Now, funnily enough, it was one of the best moments of the season was after the GWS loss, when our crowd stayed and applauded our players, I guess, for the year that they put on. And I actually, I was standing down there for a moment and I didn't sort of realise what was happening. And then I could hear the Lions chant and I'm thinking, but we lost. But then I sort of realised they were just trying to show their appreciation for the year. And yeah, it was sort of a touching moment, I suppose you'd have to say, that our crowd actually did appreciate it. So, you know, I've said it many times before, for us to become a great club, we need our fans behind us, and we regularly need full houses at the Gabba, because that's the sort of environment that finals are played in, and so they can help us with the process by turning up and doing what they do. So ever so grateful for that. We were 2 hours away from a potential grand final berth, and we were 4 hours away from potentially winning a premiership. That's how close we were, and we're all disappointed that we weren't able to sort of give ourselves those opportunities, disappointed and frustrated. And so the idea is that you turn that disappointment, that frustration into action, and try and come back bigger and better next year. What it should give them is belief that they can compete with the best. But what we now need to do as a footy club is become that club that regularly puts themselves in the window of opportunity. You know, we don't want to be a flash in the pan. We want to be like Hawthorn, Geelong, Sydney. Over the years, they just turn up every year, get the job done, playing finals. Sometimes they win the big one, sometimes they don't, but they're there knocking at the door all the time. So that's our next challenge as a footy club.